James lived alone in a small house in the suburbs of Colorado. At 74, he was the kind of man neighbors only knew by the faint yellow light glowing each night and the occasional sound of an old radio playing from his living room. No one knew that behind this quiet figure lay a past buried for half a century, a past as an American soldier who once served in the Vietnam War. Back then, in those days of bombs and bullets, with the roar of helicopters overhead and gunfire echoing through the jungles, James met Liên, a Vietnamese nurse. She was gentle, calm, and had eyes so deep that one might want to pause amidst the chaos of war just to gaze into them a little longer. They didn't have much time, but every moment they shared was etched into James' heart, as if a lifetime had passed in those few fleeting weeks. The night before James's unit was relocated, Liên quietly handed him a small military radio. "When you miss me," she said in imperfect English, "turn this on." That was the last time he saw her. Years after the war ended, James could find no trace of Liên. She had vanished from all records, as if she had never existed. But he kept that radio, like a final heartbeat connecting him to a piece of his soul that even war could not take away. One early autumn night, the wind creaked through the old window frame, carrying the crisp chill of the mountains. James couldn't sleep. Though he had grown used to the silence over the years, that night felt different, like something unseen was quietly calling his name from the darkness. He got up, rummaged through an old drawer, and found the military radio from long ago, the only thing left from the war, from her. James wiped the dust from its chipped surface, then inserted the batteries, expecting nothing more than a few bursts of static and old interference. But as he turned the dial, a voice broke through, faint, buried beneath layers of static. "James, can you hear me?" His heart stopped. It was Lén's voice, soft, breathless, but unmistakable. Not a recording, not a dream. It was her, reaching out through a strange frequency, as if the past were knocking on the door of the present. James froze. He didn't dare turn off the radio, didn't even breathe too loud. He simply sat there, listening. The voice lasted less than a minute, and then it was gone. James sat alone in that old room, the radio now silent in his hands, not afraid, not confused. Just a man who had just been touched by a memory he thought had been lost forever. The next morning, James woke unsure whether the night before had truly happened, or was just a dream. But the radio still sat there on the table, its freshly wiped surface revealing a trace of what had taken place, a silent witness to something real. He picked it up and examined it carefully. The batteries were still new, but the signal light remained dark, and the device emitted no sound. He tried tuning to the same frequency again, but all he could hear was faint static and indistinct noise. For days after, he didn't turn the radio back on. Yet something inside James began to change, not outwardly, but deep within. He became quieter, as if living in two timelines at once, the present and a past long buried. Memories he thought were lost to the war began to flood back. Lén's eyes beneath the leaves, her gentle laugh during evenings spent hiding from gunfire, the feeling of their hands clasped tightly in a bunker. He started spending hours next to the radio, not to listen, but simply to feel, as if, within that silence, something still waited to be spoken. There was no fear anymore, only a soft, aching kind of longing. For James, that voice didn't need to return. Once was enough to awaken the memories he'd locked away for half a lifetime. And more than just a whisper from the past, it was Lén's way of saying, if love is deep enough, it will always find its way back. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning out the small attic in his house, James stumbled upon an old wooden box, covered in dust and cobwebs. Inside were forgotten keepsakes, a handkerchief embroidered with the name Liên in red thread, a faded photograph of the two of them laughing in the rain, and most notably, a letter, yellowed with time. His hands trembled as he opened it. The slanted, delicate handwriting was unmistakably Lén's. If one day you hear my voice through the waves, don't be surprised. I believe love has its own frequency. No matter how far apart, it always knows the way back. James sat in silence. The letter stretched across time, as if Liên had known everything, that he would survive, return home, and one day find these very words. It wasn't just a message. It was proof that love doesn't merely live in memory, but echoes in the smallest details. an old radio, an invisible sound wave, and words that were never truly lost. Since the day he found the letter, James was no longer just a lonely old man. Every morning, he would turn on the old radio, not to catch the news, but to listen to the silent frequencies where he believed a part of his soul still lingered. At times, amid the static, he would hear faint, familiar notes like the love song they once shared on the battlefield, or a distant echo of a voice from the past. No one else could hear it, and James didn't need them to. Because sometimes the most sacred things don't need to be explained, only believed. The radio was no longer just an object. It had become a bridge between two worlds, between memory and the present, between an aging soldier and the girl who once held his hand in the fire of war. One afternoon, James sat by the window, holding a plane ticket in his hand. The destination read, Hanoi, Vietnam. He wasn't sure what he would find, only that his heart was leading him there, to the place that had once been a part of his life, a part of his love, and perhaps a part of himself still waiting to return.